Yeah, as Dan mentioned at the beginning, we've been looking at in the course of the 242 so far this year. We've been looking at some of the I am statements of Jesus, the kind of statements that he makes. I am this, I am that. And today we're going to be focusing on I am the light of the world. So if you want to kind of follow through, we're going to read a little bit from John chapter 8. And if you've got a Bible with you, it'll be on the screen as well. And John chapter 8 is starting in verse 12. We'll read just a little. Of one of the times he actually mentions, Jesus makes the kind of I am the light of the world statement more than once. This is the one we're going to focus on for today. It says this: when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. The Pharisees challenged him. Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. Jesus answered, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I'm going. But you have no idea where I come from or where I'm going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one. But I do judge. My decisions are right because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In your own law, it is written that the testimony of two men is valid. I am the one who testifies for myself. The other witness is my Father who sent me. Then they asked him, where is your Father? You do not know me or my Father, Jesus replied. If you knew me, you would know my Father also.
Me or my friend.
So that is our little passage for today from John chapter 8. With that really powerful words of Jesus, especially at the very beginning, that dramatic claim that he makes, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but has the light of life.
Yes,
what a statement. What a powerful statement. Very interesting how the passage goes so from there. Now, I want to imagine you for a minute, as we're talking through. It's possible, as we talk, I'm never aiming to, but I might cause a little bit of offence. You never know. When you're speaking up the front, there's always that chance that you're going to rub someone the wrong way just a little bit. Maybe it's a phrase that you say or something like that. It happens. You get kind of used to it when you speak quite a lot in churches. And there's a variety of different responses that can come when you kind of speak or kind of share from the front. Sometimes, the more common one, the more British one I'd probably say is, they might grumble a little bit in the crowd, and maybe afterwards someone will have a little word. And I'm always open to the conversation if anyone wants to clarify anything that I've spoken or said. We'll have a little word, or maybe they won't speak to me, but we'll go home and you kind of grumble away, that kind of thing. That happens. Offence can be caused. You don't necessarily intend to cause offence, but it's a thing that can happen. Very occasionally though, I've never witnessed it. And what happens kind of in this little passage here, though, is it's not like a little quiet grumbling that happens in the crowd. Jesus is speaking, he's making some dramatic statements, and someone has clearly stood up and made a dramatic fuss of the thing and going, you're a liar, you're talking absolute nonsense. They are not a fan of what Jesus said, and they've got to make their voice heard right here, right now. Thankfully, that's never happened to me so far. I'm speaking, fingers crossed tonight is not the start. But yeah, it's a really dramatic response from the Pharisees in this little passage. They really don't like what Jesus is saying. What seems like quite a nice, potentially, verse for us, they really don't like it. Now, I guess the first question that always comes to mind to me in that situation is why? Why are they so averse to this statement of Jesus? Well, there's two very quick points to that I'll make. And the first one is one that we've been looking at a lot over the kind of course of 242. So I'll just give a very quick recap. But it's this very first statement that Jesus makes. The very first words, I am. Those words are words that have such weight. And many of us as Christians will know and recognise those words. They call all the way back to the very beginning, to Exodus, where God is speaking with Moses and he claims this as his name. I am, the one who was and is to come. It's this notion of God who is. So when Jesus is speaking here to these people, to these sort of folks that are gathered, in using these words, he is directly linking back this claim that he is God in these very words themselves, because they have weight and they have meaning, and everyone who would have been listening to him would have understood them. The second part, though, is also just as outrageous a claim in a way. in a way. Because our second part here of I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. These verses also have a callback all the way to the beginning of our Bibles. And we'll find that, if you want to follow through, it's just a couple of verses that we'll read through from Genesis chapter 1, from the very beginning of Scripture. From Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, it's just a couple of verses here. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and the darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of the water was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good." In Jesus' little verses here, not only is he speaking back to this I am claim of God and Moses and this interaction that happens in Exodus, he's also speaking all the way back to the very beginning of Scripture. There's a tie here to these words that we find at the beginning, where God speaks out and says, "Let there be light." The first words that we ever hear from God's mouth in Scripture, and Jesus is putting a direct claim on those words, that they are not just, that they are of him as well as the Father. It is a dramatic claim, a powerful claim, because what does it say at the beginning of Genesis here? That light, that powerful light, that it is light that casts out darkness. Darkness can't stand, it runs from that light, and it is light that fills void. Where there is darkness and void, there is suddenly light, and the world is transformed because of it. And that very word that we find of light in Genesis, it's a word that, if you can look into the Hebrew of it, it contains notions of order and structure. It's not just light as we understand it, there's a depth to that word. It's a word of strength from above and of order that is constructed, all found within this complicated little word of light. It is a claim of God, of what God can do, and it's a claim of who Jesus is that we find here in John chapter 8, when he says, "I am the light of the world." But a fair question. All that sounds nice, but what does that have to do with any of us? What relevance to some of maybe this stuff? It might sound nice, it might sound encouraging, but what does it mean? What impact does this have on our lives? As I was thinking through this passage, a particular little joke that I can't tell well came to mind. Some of you might have seen it before. I tried to find a clip, I couldn't find one, but it's a joke that Kevin Bridges, some of you might recognise, tells. And I'm going to badly paraphrase it and spoil the joke for you, but you get the gist of it. He basically is talking about how when we have our living rooms, the one thing you never seem to do in a living room is turn on the big light. You know the big light in the centre of the living room? That's not the light that goes on. You always use little lights, little kind of ambient lighting around the side, little lamps and stuff. No one puts on the big light. It's a kind of barbaric thing to do, to put on the big light in the living room. That's just too much light, it's too stark, and it's too bright. Thank you for that dramatic illustration. I'm not a monster, so we can turn it back up again. But we don't put on the big light when we are in a living room. We tend to, for the most part, at least I definitely know I would use this nice little lamps and stuff, gives some ambience to the room, a little bit of culture, it kind of softens the room a little bit, and makes it a little bit nicer space to be in. Because that big light, that kind of direct ceiling light in the middle, it's really bright and it's really stark. And when you turn it on, it kind of changes the room quite a bit. It highlights maybe some of the marks on the carpet. It kind of shows up some of the clutter that you might find in a corner that you wouldn't normally notice quite so much. It maybe highlights some of the scuffs or some of the bits and bobs that you kind of want to pretend aren't there quite so much. It kind of reveals everything that is going on in the midst of the room. It maybe shows our living rooms more honestly for what they are, rather than what we wish they were in our minds a little bit. And that's a good thing. I wholeheartedly encourage people using ambient lighting in your living room. But it got me thinking about us and maybe our walks, our Christian walks. How often as Christians do we do the very same thing we do with our living room, and we put nice selective lights? We let in a little bit of the light of Jesus, just to highlight the good stuff that is going on in our lives, the things that we want to draw attention to, stuff that's going well, and the good bits, and the bits that we think we're doing great in when it comes to Christian walks and Christian faith. And we can nicely, selectively light different parts of our life. But we don't want the stark, bright, big light on. Because the truth is, if we turn that light on, then it highlights everything that's in our life. We don't want that. There's stuff that's hidden in a corner that we pretend isn't there, that's hidden in the darkness. You see, what we're doing when you're kind of lighting your living room with nice kind of ambient lighting is you're using darkness as a tool to kind of selectively soften and change your environment. The same thing so often I think is true in our Christian walks when we are selective in the light of God that we let in. When we leave little corners and patches of darkness that we almost pretend aren't there. If you don't think about it, it's not there, right? It's not an issue. If you don't kind of hide it in the darkness, and that is what darkness so often does. It is this place of secrets, this place where we just don't want other folk to know about it. There's a kind of classic illustration or illustration point that's often used by teachers and preachers where they say, how would you feel if your thoughts, your mind, everything that you've thought and done over the last week and a half or so was portrayed on the screen beside me? There's some stuff I'm sure that you'd be happy to up there that you want to really encourage to let people know and see. But there's other stuff, other thoughts, other actions that we're not so proud of, that we want to hide away in the darkness. Because if no one knows, then we're safe, right? We're safe with our secrets. But here's the thing. In God we have no secrets. He knows all. He knows everything that is going on in our life. The things that we are proud of, the things that we are doing well, the things where we're walking truly and wholeheartedly in His light, and the things where we're not. The things where we just aren't. The things where the sin gets in and where the struggle gets in and the darkness has its place and its claim. He knows all of it. So the question comes to each of us, what are we going to do about that? Are we happy sitting in this nice sort of pretense that things are well? Or do we truly want to walk in the fullness of the light? In all that it brings? Even in its darkness, do we want to walk in that light and in that truth? It's not an easy thing to do. To embrace the light. Here's the thing that Jesus has kind of reminded us in this little passage here, when He makes this claim of being the light and speaking back into the beginning of Genesis. It is the power of the light of God. You see, nothing can stand against it. Sometimes I think when we look into the darkness, it looks a bit scary. It looks a bit daunting, and we sit there going, I can't do anything about that. It's too much, so I'm just going to try and pretend it's not there. It's too much, I'm not going to deal with it. But that's looking at it from our eyes, from our power. Because we don't have any control over the darkness. But He does. His light is beyond anything we can recognise or understand. It is incredibly powerful. You see, what is darkness at its essence? It's just an absence of light. It's just a space where light is not. And the same is true on a spiritual level. Darkness in our life, spiritual darkness, things that drag us away from the good and the wonder of God. They're just things that aren't of Him, and they have no power against Him. But it takes faith and it takes trust to believe that that light of God can transform the darkness in our lives. We can leave it there. We can let things fester, we can let things rot, and they will do more and more damage. It's interesting how just a little bit of darkness can grow and grow. It takes over more and more space. And before you know it, what was just a little thing that was a throwaway thought has suddenly become a huge issue. There is a real challenge to our lives. Now you might be sitting there thinking, maybe there's stuff going on in your life that you're like, that's too big. Like, I don't know what I do. If I bring that to God, like, that's just too big. I don't know what He's going to say. I don't know how He's going to respond. There's some things that are just too dark, and I'm just going to leave it at the side. I'm just going to pretend it's not there, because that is the easier option. I don't want to face the judgment that might come with it. This is one of those moments where I love context in Scripture, because as soon as you get context, you often get so much more out of what you understand the words being said. Just before this little bit of I am the light of the world, this claim of Jesus in John 8, is another story which kind of directly leads into it. It's one that some of you may recognise. Pharisees bring a woman before Jesus, a woman who has been caught in adultery. caught literally in adultery, not like kind of like, by the sounds of things, almost in the midst of it. I don't know what is going on, but she has been caught red-handed and been dragged before Jesus. And the Pharisees, clearly they think they found a little opportunity here to kind of catch Jesus out, just to show him up. He's got a choice of what he is going to do. Because by the law, this woman who had been caught in adultery, the thing to do, the right thing in their eyes, would have been to stone this woman. And so they bring her to Jesus and they're like, Jesus, surely we need to stone her. That's the right thing to do, yeah? And Jesus speaks these truly powerful words, where he says, whoever is without sin, you cast the first stone. You throw the first stone at her if you're blameless. Whichever of you who is gathered in this little mob here, blameless ones, step forward and you can throw those stones first. And one by one, person by person, they drop their stones and they walk away, until only Jesus and the woman are left together. Jesus, the one who truly was without sin, the one who truly did have the right to cast that first stone if ever anyone did. But he says to her, those who have condemned you, where are they? They're gone. I condemn you neither. Go and sin no more. Her sin had been brought out into the fullness of the light. It was clear for all to see. But what we find in Jesus is not condemnation, not judgment, but love and hope and a way forward. Because that is what the light of God does. It transforms. It is not for us to be condemned by the sins of our past, but for us to walk forward in the fullness of the light. That is what we're offered. To come before God and to truly and wholeheartedly embrace his light and all that comes with it. Because remember what Jesus says at the beginning? You will never walk in darkness but have the light of life. That light, it is goodness, it is hope, it is love, it is compassion, it is fullness of what life is meant to be. The things in the dark, they might have their little draw for a time, but they don't stand against the wonder of what we find in the light. So we each have a choice of what we do with that. Do we embrace the light, or do we hide from it? The thing is, all secrets tend to have a way of coming out one way or another. The things that we do in the darkness, we might think they're safe for now, and maybe they are. But a day often comes where they find themselves in the light. Are they going to be dragged there without our choice, or are we looking to find ways to deal honestly with them before God? And I would encourage you, for those who are struggling with different things that are going on in life and aren't sure how to bring them forward. The first is always to come to Scripture and prayer, spend time before God. That is always where we should start with anything that is our minds and hearts. But also find people to be honest with. Confession is a powerful thing. Being real with what is going on in our lives is a powerful tool that God can so often use if it's the right individual and someone we can truly trust. Because darkness has this gripping thing that often drags us back, but the light beckons us forwards. And being stuck in the middle can be such a difficult place to be in. But remember the power of the light. Remember who Jesus is and claims to be in all that we know of him, and the love and the hope and the compassion and the mercy we will always find